Top 10 signs Gypsy Rose Blanchard is just like her mother Dee Dee Blanchard. First up, we have the interview with her husband where she was trying to control him. So a clip at the moment went viral on TikTok and circulated across the internet. What happened? Well, Gypsy basically told her husband to shut up when he says something that was a little bit embarrassing. She was talking about what it was like spending all those years in prison and the fact that she has changed a lot over that time period. She jokes around and says, "Oh, I went from 19 to 32 so quick. Geez, I can't believe I got so old." And this is when Ryan says, "You never went to school either." Gypsy is clearly very embarrassed about this comment and she quietly tells Ryan to shut up, but she says it under her breath while the camera is still rolling. After that, her husband looks completely defeated and he puts his head down, refusing to speak. At other points in the interview, you can actually see Gypsy squeezing his arm when she wants him to be quiet. And even though the quality of the video isn't that great, it's pretty clear that she found a way to stop him talking basically whenever she wants to. The whole thing seems like a toxic relationship and it reminds everyone of what her mother used to do to her. Now moving on to the pregnancy rumors that Gypsy Rose and her husband have been circulating on social media. Ryan posted a photo on Instagram that showed his arm wrapped around Gypsy's belly, and in the caption he wrote, "Me and my little family cuddling together." That was obviously supposed to make it sound like the couple are expecting, even though Gypsy never actually confirmed these rumors herself. They've also been fueling even more pregnancy rumors by posting photos of them visiting a medical facility in Lake Charles. This has fans concerned for the two of them, considering a lot of people now believe that Gypsy has completely turned into her mother and that she is dangerous. She was released on parole in December after serving 8 years of a 10-year sentence for her role in plotting the death of her mother Dee Dee Blanchard. While she was in prison, she ended up marrying Ryan, a 37-year-old teacher from Louisiana, who picked her up from prison, and that is when they plan to start the rest of their lives together. Next up, we have the accusations of being fame hungry. Since being released from prison, Gypsy now has more than 9 million followers on TikTok. Her attitude and enthusiasm to lean into her stardom have made her a darling of the internet. Fans have been calling her a queen and commending her courage after everything that she has been through. Despite her video updates having the slightly clumsy quality of someone who's never been on the internet before, most people have welcomed Gypsy Rose with open arms. She has millions of followers on TikTok and Instagram, and YouTubers are begging her to appear on their podcasts, and media outlets are scrabbling over each other to land an interview. But that isn't really surprising, considering that her story has always been incredibly fascinating and stomach-turning at the same time, especially with all those documentaries, articles, and TV adaptations. Gypsy has always been a bit of a sustained internet celebrity, even when she was in prison. So the internet was ready for her when she was finally released. People were rooting for her to succeed because her story was just so horrific. Now they get to see what she actually does with her freedom. Next, we have to talk about the fact that she is a secret millionaire. According to one source, Gypsy's net worth has reached an estimated $3 million. Now, how does one who spent 9 years in prison with no previous employment experience become a millionaire when they get released? Well, her financial status is undeniably linked to her unexpected prominence as a public figure. The documentaries and true crime adaptations featuring her have not only contributed to her net worth, but they've also fueled the ongoing public interest in her case. From participating in documentaries that delve into the complexities of her case, to signing book deals that offer readers insights into her life, she has strategically leveraged her unique experiences. All of that contributed to her overall income. But does that mean she's a bad person? Well, not really, but she does need to make a new life for herself after everything that she's been through, and she clearly hopes to start a family soon. Now let's talk about her secret communications. On April the 12th of 2019, Gypsy was reported to be engaged to a prison pen pal. Ryan Scott Anderson started writing to her after he watched the HBO documentary Mummy, Dead and Dearest, which, as we all know, tells Gypsy's story. They knew each other for about a year and a half, and Gypsy's family approved of him. In an interview, she talked about her morning wedding with Ryan, saying it was very, very small. We didn't have any guests, it was just something for him. In the future, she said they do plan on having a reception, like a redo wedding with all of their family and their friends and the dress and the cake. She said, "Our prison wedding was just something where we could make our vows to each other. If I had another chance to redo everything, I don't know if I would go back to when I was a child and tell my aunts and uncles that I'm not sick and mummy makes me sick." She went on to say, "No one will ever hear me say I'm glad she's gone or I'm proud of what I did. I regret it every single day." Her decision to have Dee Dee's life ended came after she tried to run away ahead of yet another needless procedure. She claims that she fled her home only to be tracked down within hours. After years of reflection, self-work, and therapy, when speaking about Dee Dee, Gypsy said that she simply did not deserve that. But that brings us to our next point, the fact that Gypsy initially lied about committing the crime. On June 14th of 2015, sheriff's deputies found Dee Dee Blanchard face down in the bedroom of her house, lying on the bed because of wounds inflicted several days earlier. There was no sign of Gypsy, who, according to Dee Dee, had these chronic conditions like leukemia, asthma, muscular dystrophy, and who supposedly had the mental capacity of a 7-year-old due to brain damage. The following day, police found Gypsy Rose in Wisconsin, where she had traveled with her then boyfriend/accomplice, Nicholas Gojon, whom she had met online. It turns out that she let him into the home and allegedly gave him duct tape, gloves, and a knife with the understanding that he would then use it to end Dee Dee's life. Nicholas then carried out the crime while she was asleep. The two of them fled together, and Wisconsin police arrested them at Nick's parents' house. This was a few days after Gypsy had posted graphic messages from her mother's Facebook page. And the disturbing part is, some of those Facebook posts are still up on Facebook today. It's chilling to see it and read all the comments of people being worried for Dee Dee and Gypsy. She was also pretty comfortable lying to police at the time. During Gypsy's interrogation, she acts shocked to hear that her mother had her life ended by someone. She says, "I don't know what happened with my mom, why don't you just tell me?" The officer then says, "You know what happened to your mom, and I know that you know." At this point, Gypsy refuses to admit anything, and she says, "You think it was me? Why would you think that it was me? I've always loved my mom. My mom and I are best friends." She continued to maintain her innocence up until Nick actually revealed the truth. During a prison phone call she had with her dad, she told him what was being said about her in the news wasn't true, and that she swears that she really is innocent. Eventually, her and Nick were both formally arrested, and when Gypsy's attorney obtained her medical records from Louisiana, she secured a plea bargain and was sentenced to 10 years in prison. As we know though, she ended up getting out early. But what a lot of people don't know is that she actually went along with a lot of the lies that her mother said, including faking her illnesses. As we know, Dee Dee had Munchausen syndrome by proxy, which is a mental disorder where a parent exaggerates, fabricates, or induces illness in a person under their care, all to try and obtain sympathy and attention. Dee Dee had been making her daughter pass herself off as younger and pretend to be disabled and chronically ill, subjecting her to unnecessary surgery and medication, controlling her through physical and psychological mistreatment. Gypsy was not aware of this, and when she found out that she could actually walk and she wasn't fully sick, that's when she came up with her plan to end the life of her mother. After the disclosure of how Dee Dee had treated Gypsy, sympathy for Dee Dee as the victim shifted to her daughter as a long-term victim of mistreatment. Gypsy is quoted at Nick's trial in 2018 saying, "If it weren't for Nick and how dark he was, I wouldn't have gone through with it." And to this day, she still partly blames Nick for what happened, even though it was actually her idea. Next up, we have the evil planning. So apparently, Nick actually wanted the crime to be committed in a much more gruesome way. He wanted it to be messy, but Gypsy was headstrong about calling the shots. During the trial, she explained under oath how a tasteless and odorless poison was too hard to find, and that arson would be too complicated, and a firearm would be too messy. So she stole a hunting knife from a Walmart, and she mailed Nick more than $1,000 that she had stolen from Dee Dee. He was to purchase a round-trip bus ticket for himself and a one-way trip for Gypsy to join him back in Wisconsin. The rest of the money was for food and a room at a nearby Days Inn hotel. Now, what is somewhat funny is that Nick actually got a harsher sentence than Gypsy, even though she was really the mastermind behind it all. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. And last of all, we have to talk about the fact that Gypsy had been keeping in touch with Nick. She admitted that she was still pining over Nick while they were in county jail. They had exchanged letters by hiding them in the recreation room and writing love messages on the wall. Later, when they were both in prison, the former couple exchanged just 2 letters. When Nick found out that she was engaged to another man, he accused her of adultery and said that they were still married under God's law. She replied that she never wanted to get back together with him, but that she still felt a sense of guilt, which is the reason why she testified on his behalf at trial. So there was still something between them long after the actual crime had been committed, which is a secret that Gypsy seemed to be hiding from the world. But do you think she is the real villain, and do you think she's turning into her mother? Please let us know in the comments below, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.